Imagine walking alone on a cold London night. Your footsteps echo between narrow brick alleys. Gas lamps flicker overhead, casting long shadows that seem to follow you. And somewhere in the darkness, a man is watching, a man whose name the world still fears. Tonight, we break open one of history's most chilling mysteries, Jack the Ripper, the phantom killer who terrorized London in 1888. But this isn't the old, recycled version of the Ripper story. No. This is a modern forensic breakdown of every major piece of evidence. The victims, the letters, the suspects, the autopsies, and the new theories that could finally reveal the identity of the world's most infamous serial killer. So sit back, turn down the lights, and step with me into the fog-shrouded world of Victorian London, where the truth is far more terrifying than the legend. To understand Jack the Ripper, we must start with the place where he hunted, in the late 1800s. This district in London's East End was a maze of poverty, the smell of coal smoke, sweat, and desperation hanging in the air. For many living here, especially women, survival was day to day. Some turned to prostitution for a few pennies per client. These women worked outdoors, often at night and usually alone. They were vulnerable, and someone took advantage. Someone who blended into the night. Someone who hunted with terrifying precision. The police had no idea who they were dealing with because nothing like Jack the Ripper had existed before. The Ripper case includes several murders, but only 5 are considered canonical. 5 crimes that stand out because of the signature brutality. Let's walk through them, step by step. Known as Polly, she was found at 4:40 a.m. Her throat was slashed twice deeply from left to right. There were cuts across her abdomen. Police assumed it was a drunken brawl gone wrong. They had no idea this was the beginning. Found in a backyard behind 29 Hanbury Street. Her throat was cut. Her abdomen was opened. Organs had been removed with almost surgical precision. This was no ordinary killer. Whoever did this had anatomical knowledge or at least practiced skill. Whitechapel went into panic. Stride's murder is debated because her body showed only a throat cut, no mutilation. Some believe the killer was interrupted. A carriage driver passed moments before she was found, less than an hour after Stride. This time, the mutilation was extreme. Her face was slashed, her abdomen opened, organs removed and displayed. The killer wasn't just escalating, he was sending a message, the final and most horrific murder. Kelly was killed indoors, in her tiny room at Miller's Court. Her body was mutilated beyond recognition. The killer had time, privacy. He did things no human should be capable of. Police detectives said it was the worst crime scene they had ever witnessed. After Kelly, the murders stopped. Or the killer simply changed cities, changed names, changed habits. The truth is, we still don't know. 3 letters are often attributed to Jack the Ripper. The Dear Boss letter, the Saucy Jackie postcard, the From Hell letter. But here's the problem. Most modern analysts believe the first 2 were written by journalists trying to sell newspapers, not the killer. Let's examine each. This is the letter where the name Jack the Ripper first appears. But the language feels theatrical. Lines like, "I love my work and want to start again." It almost reads like a horror novel. Forensic linguists found many similarities with journalists writing at the time. Could it be real? Possibly. Is it likely? Probably not. It references the double murder of Stride and Eddowes, but that information was already public. This postcard was likely written after reading the news. Another probable fake. This is the only letter that might be real. Why? Because it came with a piece of human kidney. Catherine Eddowes had been found with 1 kidney removed. Was it hers? Victorian science couldn't prove it. Modern tests are impossible. The sample was lost. But the writing style is different. The language is rough. The spelling is poor. It feels authentic. If any letter came from the killer, this is the one. We now move into the modern breakdown, not Victorian guesswork, real forensic understanding. Let's examine what the murders tell us about the killer. The wounds suggest a blade 6 to 8 inches thin, Sharp, possibly a medical knife, possibly a butcher's knife. This doesn't prove the killer was a surgeon, but he was comfortable with cutting. He had practiced movements. He understood anatomy at least enough to locate organs quickly. He wasn't butchering wildly. He was working with confidence. He was strong enough to overpower victims silently. This suggests he approached calmly, possibly gained trust, possibly posed as a client, no screams, no fight signs. He was efficient. Based on modern profiling, he was likely a local, was comfortable in the streets of Whitechapel, had deep rage toward women, probably lived alone, likely kept trophies, probably watched crime scenes after the murders, almost certainly blended in during daylight. This profile matches dozens of men in Victorian London, which is why the case was nearly impossible to solve. Hundreds have been accused, but only a handful remain credible. Let's break down the top suspects using modern analysis. A schoolteacher and barrister. Well educated. Depressed. Found dead in the River Thames shortly after the final murder. Why he's considered. His suicide happened just weeks after Kelly's murder. He had possible mental instability. Some police officials suspected him. Why he's unlikely. No evidence connects him physically to Whitechapel. He didn't fit the local profile. No known history of violence. Most modern historians believe Druitt was a convenient scapegoat, a Polish Jewish immigrant living in Whitechapel. Why he's strong. He lived within walking distance of all murder sites. He had violent tendencies. He hated women. He had a history of mental illness. A police official named him privately as the prime suspect, but here's where it gets controversial. A 2014 DNA test on a shawl claimed to link Kosminski to one of the victims. But the test was flawed, contaminated, using questionable methods. It's not solid evidence. Kosminski remains one of the top suspects, but the case isn't airtight. Cutbush was known for attacking women with knives. He lived in the East End. He was violent, unstable, and hated by his neighbors. Arguments for: he stabbed multiple women. His family owned medical books. He fit the psychological profile. Arguments against: his attacks were sloppy. The Ripper murders were precise. Still, he's a credible possibility. One of the strangest characters in the case. A traveling quack doctor from the US who collected human organs. Yes, human organs. That alone makes him suspicious. He was in London during the murders. He was arrested for unrelated offenses. He fled to the United States as soon as the murders stopped. Sounds perfect, right? The problem, his known height over 6 feet, doesn't match witness descriptions. Still, his obsession with organs keeps him on the list. In the 1990s, a mysterious diary surfaced, claiming to be written by Jack the Ripper, signed by James Maybrick, a Liverpool cotton merchant. The diary describes the murders in detail, but forensics exposed inconsistencies, handwriting mismatches, ink dating conflicts. Most experts call it a forgery. Still, some people believe it. Let's break down the most current conclusions. This is the most widely accepted view. Not a surgeon, not a foreign nobleman, not a traveling doctor, but a local man, living in Whitechapel, working a low-level job, comfortable with knives, able to vanish quickly after murders. It would explain how he avoided suspicion, how he escaped crime scenes, how he knew patrol schedules, but there's no direct evidence, only circumstantial connections. Some forensic researchers argue that Stride's and Kelly's murders differ enough to suggest 2 killers, but the mutilation pattern strongly argues for a single offender. This theory is interesting but weak. This theory has grown stronger in recent years. Reasons: many local men worked with knives. They knew how to bleed and cut animals. They worked late-night shifts. They had physical strength. They blended into Whitechapel crowds. This is a simple explanation, and simple explanations often prove correct. Let's be clear. Victorian police were doing their best, but they faced massive limitations. 1. No fingerprinting. Fingerprint identification wasn't in use yet. 2. No DNA analysis. A strand of hair or blood sample meant nothing at the time. 3. Poor crime scene control. Crowds walked through murder sites. Evidence was contaminated. 4. No unified investigation. Various police divisions didn't share information effectively. 5. Public pressure and media hysteria. Reporters sensationalized everything. Fake letters, fake clues, fake suspects. The investigation was drowned in noise. Even today, the case feels like trying to complete a puzzle with half the pieces missing. Why does this story still hold the world in its grip? Why do we care so deeply about a killer from more than a century ago? Because Jack the Ripper represents something primal, the fear of the unknown, a faceless terror, a killer who walked into the dark and simply vanished. Unlike modern serial killers, the Ripper wasn't caught. He never confessed. He never faced justice. He became a legend, part man, part myth, part monster. And as long as the mystery remains unsolved, we are left to wonder, who was he? What drove him? And how many times did someone unknowingly pass him on the street, never realizing they brushed shoulders with a killer whose name would echo through history? After more than 13 years, thousands of theories, endless documentaries, and every scientific tool available, here is the modern consensus among forensic and criminal psychology experts. Jack the Ripper was most likely a local man aged 25 to 40, a manual laborer, right-handed, familiar with anatomy. From work, not schooling, frequently violent, possibly mentally unstable, living alone, or in lodging houses, blending into Whitechapel crowds, dying or moving away after 1888, and the top suspect matching these traits? Aaron Kosminski. Maybe never, and that is the chilling truth. We have clues. We have theories, or maybe the Ripper's greatest weapon was time itself. Because sometimes, the deeper we look into the darkness, the further the answers slip away. Thank you for watching. If you want more deep dive historical mysteries, don't forget to subscribe, like, and tell me which case you want next. And remember, the past doesn't stay buried, it waits in the shadows.